Hey, Shalom Akim, and the few Aqua that happen to watch this. Uh, First and foremost, call hello Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim Rakak Dash. You know, this is Nama with the DC camp. And for this video, we're going to address prominent Americans you assumed were white. Of course, we've been under the thumb of a real scumbag, a piece of shit. And of course, I'm talking about the nation of Edom, the so called white man and woman. All right. But you have to remember something. I remember the late uh, child psychologist, Dr. Frances Quest Welsing, here in D.C. What she said one time in a video. She was talking about, of course, so called white people. And she said something to the effect that someone that's constantly talking about he's superior, and superior. Well, in fact, he suffers from an inferiority complex to the nth degree. Think about it. This piece of crap that he is has told lie after lie after lie. First and foremost, about who he even is. That's something that he's tried to keep secret and has succeeded for quite a while up until now. And actually, his own technology, he likes to brag about his intellect. But actually, these things are his undoing. This is the Most High, of course, working, all right, to bring about this devil's downfall. All right, and we know that truth is playing a big part of that. Now we learn the truth of who this devil is. We're learning the truth to the extent of all the wickedness he's done in the earth. He can't hide no more. Jeremiah 49:10 says, "What will make Esau bear?" This is the Most High. He's making bear. Isaiah 47 chapter. All these things he depended on, his witchcrafts and all of that are failing him now. And it's beautiful to see. If for nothing else, this is a great time to be alive. Sirach or Ecclesiasticus 25:7. Let's get that real quick before I go into this. Because bear in mind, this video I'm about to share with you is just under 2 hours long, so I can't cover it all. But, yeah, let me get this real quick. But some of you are going to be surprised by some of them. Some of you possibly could know these things. But in any case, I'm going to go through it as see what I can do here. It says, "There be 9 things which I have judged in mine heart to be happy, and the 10th I will utter with my tongue. A man that has joy of his children, which you can't. You can't. You can't have joy in your children in this place. Now you got to be worried about what they're being taught in school. And the ironic thing about that is, here it is, they want to teach your children, they want to have, teaching them about LGBT and whatever else letter comes, and all this wickedness, but when the truth comes out, they want to call it critical race theory, but like I said at the start, this truth is tearing their ass up. They don't want to face the reality of what they've done to achieve what they've gotten. It's a shame unto them, and that's prophecy. That's Habakkuk, all right, 2:16, and I'll get that right after I finish this. Once again, there be 9 things which I have judged in mine heart to be happy, and the 10th I will utter with my tongue. A man that hath joy of his children, and he that liveth to see the fall of his enemy. And that's this is the phase that we're in now. We're living to see the fall of this piece of shit. Let's go to, real quick, this is Luke 10:18. And this is Yahweh Shai, the Lord, saying, "And he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven." It's not talking about the spiritual, it's not talking about the angel. This is talking about a man who's the end of his rulership. This is how fast this devil is falling. All right. This is the reference there. Let's go to, I said Habakkuk. Let's go to Habakkuk 2 and 16. A lot of meat on this. I encourage you to read it. For those of you that just, starting to follow this, please start at verse 1 on this and read into this, and read the whole chapter. But in any case, it says, thou art filled with shame. Now, verse 4 would tell you that the spirit is in this so-called white man is not upright. All right? He's the wicked. Ecclesiastes 1 and 15, that was made crooked cannot be made straight. And he was made to be crooked. He was made to be wicked. Therefore, he cannot be. So all you so-called Christians out there, you're wasting your damn time. All right? Thou art filled with shameful glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. Remember, I mentioned Jeremiah 49 and 10, and I mentioned Isaiah 47 chapter. Please read those. The cup of the Most High Yahweh's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. That's why they don't want to address this, what they call critical race theory, but it's facts. These are just the hard facts, the truth. All right, they don't want to deal with because they know, and they're starting to realize we done fucked up because they thought we would because they were taught that. But if you have a problem, you should take it up with your elites, those that pretended to be us. How you going to be mad at us because we're coming into understanding who we are, all right? But this is shit that you covered up. All right. So anyway, let's go ahead and address the video. Please, let me turn the volume up. Okay, it was already up. Cool. Anyway, prominent Americans you assume were white. Here we go.
Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If you have viewed some of my previous videos, welcome back.
Good sight.
This video should really raise an eyebrow. It did for me when I was conducting the research.
His sight is straight up.
Okay, so this video, as you can see, is titled Prominent Americans You Assume Were White. How many times when recording or listening to someone speak about history do we assume that that person that they are speaking about is white?
Because that's,
based on
yeah.
the title or position. Oftentimes we, including myself in the past tense, usually assume that the individual is white. This is not a coincidence.
No, it's not.
In my opinion, this is due to the fact that we as Americans have been conditioned to believe only white people.
That's the right word, conditioned.
accomplish anything of importance. How often do we pay attention to historical figures' appearance? I know that while doing research for my videos, there were many books, articles, and newspapers that totally skipped over what the person looked like. In my opinion, this means you don't get a complete description of the person. Another factor, and this is a glaring issue, does the painting, photo, or etching even resemble the written description? Now, I've also come across many books, articles, and newspapers
Yeah,
that do
Mr.
have a
Bean.
physical description of the person.
Damn.
But for some reason, these pieces of
Yep,
literature
Queen
don't
Charlotte.
make it onto the high school or college course reading
Family
list.
crest.
Although, on the occasions when they do appear on the reading list, and the subject has a shallow or light, tawny, brown, olive,
Tawny.
dark,
Keep that word in
complexion,
mind.
the darker complexion gets explained away as the person only having dark hair or eye color or both, which of course totally negates the meaning and definition of complexion. This false definition of complexion has been acceptable by academia for a very long time. However,
Swarthy. Look at that.
is available to the masses, it allows one to search thousands of keywords in seconds. You should soon come to realize, or at least some people realize, that there is something majorly wrong
Joseph
with how history has been
Goebbels.
portrayed.
If you tell a big enough and
As I always do,
lie and keep repeating it,
I will give you the definition of the word
there you go.
complexion.
And that's what's happened.
There are three basic categories when most people are described in history: complexion, hair color, and eye color. Although in modern times we can change our complexion. Take Michael Jackson for example. He kept the same hair color, however, he has had various complexions. He went from a dark complexion to a pale complexion. He is a perfect example of the extreme differences in complexions. He went from black to white. This is my theory. After conducting years of research, Black Europeans of the not consider themselves Negroes, or what you and I would consider the typical black person today. There were several reasons for this, and I don't want to delve into it too heavily. I can do that in another video. But briefly, black Europeans obviously were a different culture. They spoke European languages, they had distinct accents, the elites considered themselves educated and intellectual. Some also had slight variations in eye color and hair texture, and this was due to hundreds of years of isolation, and in many cases mixtures of people. Although, after looking at evidence of black European sculptures, books, journals, etchings, jewelry, and religious paintings, etc., it's clear that many black Europeans resemble the typical African American we see walking around today, with
Not
all their variations in
African.
complexions, eye color, and hair texture. As far as the term Negro and who the Europeans called Negro, they were referring to the Aboriginal people of America, the AKA Indians. Okay, I can hear people now. Oh, sure. Now the American Indians were black people too. This is exactly what I'm saying. There's a huge amount of evidence for this assertion, but I'm not
Look at
going
that.
to cover that now. There are researchers who have hours and hours of research backing up this theory. I will do a video on that topic and link all the researchers to that video. Due to the obvious white supremacist tilt on what is provided to the public via our educational system, especially since the Woodrow Wilson administration,
This
pointing out
motherfucker.
complexion is one of the only ways that the reader can determine
You're gonna
the
find
ethnicity
out.
of the subject, or in modern terms, is
Well,
the
I'll let
person
him tell you.
black or white. I mentioned Woodrow Wilson because it was during his administration that much of the common historical knowledge was omitted, destroyed, and rewritten
Ah.
to be replaced by Woodrow Wilson's historical point of view.
He was a
This was
gatekeeper.
based on the lost cause narrative. The lost cause narratives
The South.
typically portray the Confederacy as a noble, just, and heroic group. So, with Wilson's presidential power and academic influence, and also having been the former president of Princeton University,
I'm gonna stop it right there. He was head of Princeton. So as such, he was privy to a lot of shit the normal the normal everyday person didn't have access to, I'll put it that way. So he therefore became a gatekeeper. All right, with his racist ass.
the majority of the nation stopped using the common history books of that era
See?
and started using the historical books literally written by Woodrow Wilson. A 10-volume set of history books that, in my estimation, changed the nation. And just as a side note, the Board of Trustees of Princeton University on June 22nd, 2020, released a statement that read, "The Board of Trustees concludes that Wilson's racist views and policies make him an inappropriate namesake for the School of Public and International Affairs."
You waited till 2020? When did this piece of shit die? Hold on. When did this motherfucker die? Was it? I think he got sick. I think it's like 1921. Wait a minute. This motherfucker. Hold on. Woodrow Wilson. 1924. Piece of shit. Yeah. Here in D.C. Yeah, so he served 2 terms. Democrat. See, I keep telling you, Jakes. This whole system is not. And he was from Virginia. He was born in Virginia, motherfucker. See, you know what? Let's keep going.
The School of Public and International Affairs and Residential College. The current president, Christopher Eisgruber, I may have pronounced that wrong, in a statement when explaining why the board made its decision said, "Wilson's racism was significant and consequential, even by the standards of his own time."
Now you know why he allowed Birth of a Nation to be screened in the White House. And what did that do? That led to the rebirth, or the resurgence rather, of the Ku Klux Klan and all that shit that was going on back there in the World War I days and right thereafter, the bloody summer of 1919 and the years that followed.
He segregated the federal civil service after it had been racially integrated for decades, thereby taking America backward in its pursuit of justice. He not only acquiesced in, but added to the persistent practice of racism in this country, a practice that continues to do harm today. He went on further to say, and I am paraphrasing, Princeton is part of an America that has too often disregarded, ignored, or excused racism, allowing the persistence of systems that discriminate against black people.
Mm-hmm.
And yet another leading cause of misinformation
Daddy's mother.
regarding
Yes.
American history
Yes.
was due to the direct and indirect influence of the Daughters of the Confederacy. A great video to watch regarding the impact they had on American history was created by Vox, VOX, on YouTube, and it's titled How Southern Socialites Rewrote Civil War History.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so now let me show you more evidence as to why I believe that there were thousands of black Europeans that immigrated to America from Europe.
We know this, of course, but
Okay, so now let me show you more evidence as to why I believe that there were thousands of black Europeans that immigrated to America from Europe.
for those of you that
So
don't,
I'm going to start off with the great Daniel Webster.
mm,
And so for many of you, you're wondering who the heck is Daniel Webster? Well, Daniel Webster was born in Salisbury, New Hampshire, January 18th, 1782. His parents were Ebenezer Webster and Abigail Webster. Ebenezer was a tavern owner, farmer, politician, and finally a judge. The Websters were of English and Scottish extraction. In Daniel's early life, he was educated at the Phillips Exeter Academy, and then he went on to Dartmouth College. Daniel was a lawyer and a statesman who represented New Hampshire and Massachusetts in the U.S. Congress. He also served as Secretary of State under Presidents Harrison, Tyler, and Fillmore. He argued over 200 cases before the U.S. Supreme Court and was a member of the Federalist Party and the National Republican Party, and then the Whig Party. Okay, so my first piece of evidence is from the 53rd Congress, 3rd Session, Senate document, Proceedings in Congress upon the acceptance of the statues of John Stark and Daniel Webster.
now what he's going to go into, I'm going to set it up. Too often, a lot of people, when they read something, you're so used to seeing pictures, like when you go to like Wikipedia or any other, source about a particular person in history, you pay particular attention to that picture that they put up there. Now, often the case is, if you would bother to read the description in other literature, you'll find out that that picture does not look like what the wording is describing. That's what he's going to get into.
Amended by the state of New Hampshire in 1895. As you can see on page 84, I quote, Captain Ebenezer Webster, father of the godlike Daniel, the great Constitution expounder, whose statue stands alongside that of Stark in yonder hall, and whose name is writ with his high on the scroll of fame. How little these men could have thought that this sublime portion awaiting them when Daniel, a young lawyer at Portsmouth, on his way to the courts in Concord, and Stark, living in the retirement of his farm, met at the old hotel in Hooksett, and the hero of Bennington spoke from the sale of himself at one time for £40, and was ready to believe Daniel was the son of Captain Webster because of the same deep, swarthy color.
Swarthy.
Only blacker.
What?
Again, pay attention. Not only is he saying Daniel's father was the same deep, swarthy complexion, he says Daniel's face is even blacker. He doesn't mention his hair or eye color. He specifically mentions his face. Again,
His
we're gonna pay
visage.
attention where this document comes from. It's from the 53rd Congress, 3rd Session, Senate document.
His
which is an
visage.
excellent primary source. Okay, so let's look at my next piece of evidence, and this comes from the website Encyclopedia of World Biography.
Lamentation 4 and 8.
World biographies, we have Daniel Webster.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you can see under the
Childhood.
section for Daniel Webster, first paragraph, it states, while a child, Daniel earned the nickname Black Dan from his dark skin and black hair and eyes. Again, as I have repeatedly said, complexion means the color of skin on someone's face, which is why they had to further complexion is a separate category of description. Okay, so my next piece of evidence was a book titled Life of Daniel Webster, given to Harvard Library in 1938, written by George Ticknor Curtis in 1870. As you can see on page 7, chapter titled Family Complexion, it goes on to read, this grandmother, his father's mother, was Susanna Bach-Elder, a descendant of the Reverend Stephen Bach-Elder in the county of Rockingham. She had black hair and black eyes, and was a woman of uncommon strength of character. Her son, Mr. Webster's father, inherited from her the Bach-Elder complexion. Her other sons had the Webster characteristics. The same division of parental traits took place in Mr. Webster's own generation. He himself has said that, of his 4 brothers, only one was dark like himself. The other 3 ran off into the general characteristics belonging to the name. In fact, however, I have understood that his own brother, Ezekiel, who is represented as a model of manly beauty, although his complexion was not so dark as Daniel's, had black hair. Okay, so let's break this down just a little bit. So first, the author acknowledges that Daniel's grandmother, his father's mother, had the Bach-Elder complexion, which he inherited from his father via his grandmother. The author further writes that even Daniel stated that of his 4 brothers, only one was dark like himself. The other 3 resemble the Webster family characteristics. And it goes on further to say that Daniel's brother Ezekiel had a dark complexion, but not as dark as Daniel's. And I'd like to bring this to your attention again. No one's describing Daniel, his father, or his brother as having a shallow, or yellow, light brown, or brown complexions. They're consistently saying dark complexions, alluding to the fact that these Bach-Elders were very dark-skinned people. All right, so let's move on in the same book to page 8. We're going to be a little more than halfway down the page, and we'll pick up where it states, he has a complexion, as General Stark said of him, which burnt gunpowder will not change, and a heart, as his great son said of him, which he seemed to have borrowed from a lion. Okay, so you see where General Stark stated that burnt gunpowder could not change his complexion. Burnt gunpowder is extremely black, so Stark's statement that Daniel's complexion was so dark and black that you couldn't tell the difference between his skin and burnt gunpowder. All right, so my next piece of evidence comes from a newspaper clipping from the Salem Gazette, dated February 18th, 1834. And the clipping goes on to say, the Richmond Enquirer says, the course of Mr. Webster is anticipated with great interest. He is at this time one of the most prominent men in the chessboard. But we confess that we look to his movements with fear and suspicion. He is a man of gigantic powers. They originally received the wrong direction. It is related by the white travelers in Africa that the ebony natives imagined the fair complexion of their visitors to be the effect of disease, and consider
They are right.
as hideous for the human skin.
Mm-hmm.
The judgment of the Richmond Enquirer as to the direction of Mr. Webster's powers resembles that of the Africans about complexion. So basically, the Richmond Enquirer is stating
So he
that
stood
his
out from
complexion resembles that of an
those
African.
Edomites.
All right, so moving on to an additional piece of evidence, we can see page 3 of the book Daniel Webster, the Orator, copywritten in 1903 by Albert E. Pillsbury, also located at the Harvard Library. The quote goes on to state, speaking about Daniel, he was a delicate child with a large head, coal black hair, great black eyes, which none who saw them ever forgot, and a complexion so swarthy that they called him Little Black Dan. All right, so again, Daniel's complexion is referred to as black, which is where his nickname came from. It didn't come from his hair color or eye color.
Let me see if I
That
can
would make
skip
no
ahead
sense.
here. Hold on. You've got
Okay, so let me ask you, how many of you
you've
know
got him, Daniel Webster. Let's see. Let's go to Chief Justice Marshall. All right. Chief Justice John Marshall. All right.
Consider themselves Negroes or AKA black people. They were considered white. Crazy, I know. But I will show you direct documents.
Now, see, we've all been taught that uh, the term white didn't come about until the late 1600s, but there's something else along with that. It had to do with your status also, all right, which included wealth and all those things. This is what changed so drastically because there was a case, I believe it was, oh, I forgot to look this up before I did the video, that changed things. I believe it was 1665. I believe there was a Jake that had a lot of property. This is in Virginia, a lot of property, and he also had slaves. And this is when things changed for the worse. They, out of jealousy, and then at that time I believe it was King George the Third, or was it the second? Because they were so concerned about greedy for gain and all of this, and something came up about having people to work, uh, and well, what about those people you already have? And that's where that's where it got really bad for Jake, you know. But in any case, he's telling you right here, uh, you know, it also had to do with their status coming from Europe. You remember the apostles and was it the bishops? Oh, let's just say apostles, bishops, and elder. I remember. I'm not sure who it was in particular, but they talked about the Huguenots, and that's what he's getting into here. So let's go ahead.
Limited evidence of this assertion.
I hope I didn't go too far.
All right, so let's move on to another prominent American.
Let me run that back. That's important. Salaki, I did go too far. Let's go.
Heavy built indoors intellectual Bachchelder strain.
I'm sure I'm gonna have to do a part 2 on this.
What the animal breeders call a nick. Such a combination of opposites will sometimes give us a hunting dog or a horse, unmatched for courage, breadth, and speed, as Sir Walter Scott would say. But even in this profound explanation is merely another way of saying, I don't know. So basically, as I interpret this, I believe the author was baffled by how the dark-complexioned Daniel could have stood out virtually alone amongst all of his family with his genius and skill, not to be duplicated by any of them, even though many of them had the white Webster family complexions. I definitely feel a hint of racism coming from the author.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, he was writing this book in the early 1900s, more than 50 years after Daniel's death, when white supremacy was really ramping up, making the way for the Woodrow
This
Wilson
piece of
era.
shit.
So, before I end this video, I want to show you images of Daniel Webster that I found online. Now, as you can see, these are 3 typical images of Daniel that you find when conducting research online. Does anything immediately jump out at you? Yeah, well, the most glaring thing is that Daniel is not shown as being dark complexioned, let alone swarthy or black. Remember, his childhood nickname was Little Black Dan, and according to his descriptions, he's supposed to have really dark skin. This is obviously not the case based on the images that I was able to find of him. As I mentioned before, whoever owns the media,
There you
like
go.
newspapers,
Yes.
libraries, historical societies, photos, paintings, etc., or can provide.
Whoever owns the media, and who owns the media? The people that are pretending to be us. All right? All right? And those are the people that run the world. They're the banksters. They're, these elite banking families that currently, I should say currently they stole our land. The land of Israel. These are pretenders. All right? And they try to control the narrative. But they're losing that power. That's why you see things happening the way they're happening.
And access to them controls what the public sees. Therefore, we get images that don't match the description of these people that I'm showing you. Please keep that in mind while you're watching my videos. Look, I just have to truly confess that I'm fascinated by this research. I hope this video has been interesting so far, or at least informative. Okay, so I was going to include the dark complexion Colonel Ebenezer Webster, Daniel's father, as one of my prominent Americans. However, we have covered him and his family quite extensively already. I do want to conclude this segment regarding Daniel.
I'm gonna fast forward it just a little bit. This is something you can do at your, okay. Let's go to Chief Justice John Marshall.
All right, so let's move on to another prominent American that we all were taught was a white person.
In fact, I'm gonna have to start another whole nother video. Just say, so with that, I hope you continue to watch the second video. I'm gonna cut it short right here, and well, we'll pick up after there. So with that, hey, Shalom.